Hello everyone, we are back for our next Boxcar Children lesson. We are going to be doing Boxcar Children lesson 3, and I'll show you our questions and things we get to think about. We'll look at our goal first here though. So you can read the goal with me and I can use, ready? I can use key events from the story to explain my thinking and opinions. Just remember that key events means most important. So we're going to be using those key events or most important things from the story really to explain our reasons and thinking and really opinions about different questions today. So I'm going to show you our questions again. Boxcar Children lesson 3. So at the top, the Boxcar children began to realize that they enjoyed their chores around the boxcar. What jobs do you do at home, and do you like them? Why or why not? Is there a job that you think you would like better? Would you be willing to do chores if you were living like the Boxcar children? Why or why not? Which job would you do if you were living with the Boxcar children, and why? So down below, again, we just have a graphic organizer, just the spots just to kind of record any of your thinking, any ideas that you have. So just I want you to think about these couple chapters and think about these questions as we are going. And I'm going to just so down here, each of these boxes have the same questions, and that's where you're going to record all your answers. So I'm just going to leave it zoomed in right here. That way, then, as we're reading, you can think about these questions. And I'm going to go ahead and start reading for us here today. Chapter 5, The Explorers Find Treasure. The next morning, Jessie woke up first, and she got up at once, for she was the housekeeper. The dog sat in the door of the car and looked at her. She jumped down to get the milk for the breakfast. Then he jumped down after her. Jessie walked down by the little brook and stopped to look at the waterfall. It was beautiful. I must look in the refrigerator, she said with a laugh. It was a funny refrigerator. There was a rock behind the waterfall, and the night before Jessie had put the 2 bottles of milk in a hole in this rock. Now she took out the bottles and found that the cold was very cold. Is it good? Called Benny, who sat in the car door. It's delicious, cried Jessie. It's cold, too. She got up into the car with the milk and sat down beside Benny. Then the 4 children drank the milk for breakfast. Henry said, Today I'll go to town and try to get some work to do. I can cut grass or work in a garden or something. Then we'll have something besides milk for breakfast. He washed his hands and face and started out. I'm so glad you have a dog, Jessie, he said. Goodbye. I'll be back by noon. The children looked after Henry, and then they looked at Jessie. What are we going to do now, Jessie? Benny asked his sister. Well, Benny, answered Jessie, we'll go exploring and look for treasures. We'll begin here at the car and look until we find a dump. What's a dump? Asked Benny. Oh, Benny, said Violet. You know what a dump is. Old tin cans and old dishes and bottles. Are old tin cans and dishes treasure? Benny wanted to know. There'll be treasures for us, answered Jessie, laughing. In wheels? Asked Benny again. Will there be any wheels on the dump? Yes, maybe, replied Violet. But cups, Benny, and plates, and maybe spoons. You like to drink milk out of a cup, right? Oh, yes, agreed Benny politely, but anyone could see that his mind was still on wheels. The explorers started walking down the old rusty tracks, with Watch, their brand new watchdog, hopping along on 3 legs. The other paw, still tied up with Jessie's handkerchief, was held off the ground. But the dog looked very happy. He liked these kind children. They all walked along through the woods, looking this way and that. After a while, the old track came out into the sun, and the explorers found that they were on top of a hill. They could look down and see the town below them. Henry's down there, said Jessie. Benny was walking along behind his 2 sisters. Suddenly he cried happily, Look, Jessie, there's a treasure, a wheel! The girls looked down where he was pointing, and they saw a big dump with many old bottles and tin cans on it. There were also both wheels and cups. Indeed, there were dishes of all kinds. Oh, Benny, cried Jessie, you saw the treasure first. What would we do without you? Violet ran over to the dump. Here's a white pitcher, Jessie, she cried. Jessie looked at it. It was all right, with only one small crack. Here's a big white cup, too, she said happily. Can you use a teapot, Jessie asked Benny. Yes, indeed, she replied. We can put water in it. I found 2 cups and a bowl. Look for spoons, too. Violet held up what she found. 5 spoons covered with rust. Good, said Jessie. Here's a big kettle. Let's pile all the dishes in it. Then we can carry them back to the boxcar. Benny had found 4 wheels just alike and laid them on one side. Now he held up a pink cup. There was a big crack in it, but it had a handle. This will be my pink cup, said Benny. I hope it'll all hold milk, said Jessie, laughing. It's a beautiful cup, Benny. The children laid all their treasures, even the wheels, on a board, and the girls carried the board back to the boxcar between them. They put the dishes down by the brook. Now we have to wash them, said Jessie. All right, agreed Benny. We'll wash my pink cup. And never did a little boy's hands dishes hand dishes so carefully to her sisters as Benny did. The girls washed the dishes with soap, and Jessie used sand to get the rust off the spoons. There, she said, washing the last single spoon. How fine they look, but I'm afraid they still aren't clean enough to eat from. When Henry comes, we'll get him to build a fire. Then we can have hot water to rinse them, and they will be very clean. The children sat back and admired the dishes. Suddenly Violet cried, "Oh, I know where to put them. Come and see what I found in the car last night." Both girls looked in at the door. Look on the door on the other side of the car," said Violet. Old Jessie saw 2 pieces of wood nailed to the closed door of the car. But she knew at once what was in Violet's mind. She ran to get the board they had carried from the dump and laid it carefully across the 2 pieces of wood. It was a fine shelf for the dishes. "There," said Jessie. The children could hardly wait to put the shining dishes on the shelf. "Let's put them on now," said Violet. "Let's see how they look," without waiting to rinse them. When they were on the shelf, Violet picked some white and yellow flowers and put them in a cup full of water in the middle of the shelf. "There," said Jessie, stepping back to look at it. "You said 'there' 3 times," remarked Benny happily. "So I did," replied Jessie, laughing, "and I'm going to say it again." She pointed into the wood and said, "There." Henry was coming through the woods, and he carried many funny-looking bundles in his arms. He would not open his bundles or tell what he had been doing until it was time for dinner. "Where'd you get all the dishes?" he cried when he saw the shelf. "We went exploring," said Violet, "and found a big dump." The children began telling him about the treasures. Benny told him about the tin cans and the pink cup in his wheels. Jessie took out the big kettle and asked him about building a fire. "We want to use the dishes to eat from," she told him. "It's hard to get them clean in cold water." So Henry made a small fire in an open place where it would not burn anything. He put big stones all around it. "We ought to have a fire," he remarked. Jessie cleaned the water with sand and filled it with water. Cleaned the kettle with sand and filled it with water. Then Henry put it on the fire. Soon the water was boiling, and Jessie rinsed the dishes carefully. "Now I know they're clean enough to eat from," she said happily. Okay, I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to stop here, and we'll come back for the next video, for the next chapter.